He said I was too emotional to be trusted, so I let his own words do the talking. The first time my manager called me too emotional. He smiled when he said it. That's important. Because when people intend to diminish you, they rarely sound aggressive. They sound reasonable, concerned, almost helpful. Emily is incredibly talented, he told HR during my performance review. But sometimes her emotional responses affect her judgment. Emotional. That was the word. Not inaccurate enough to challenge outright. Not precise enough to defend cleanly. Just soft enough to settle into the room and stay there. I sat across the table, hands folded in my lap, and felt something familiar happen. Not anger. Recognition. Because I had seen this before, just not in an office. My manager, Victor, had built a reputation as a calm, strategic leader. The kind of person who never raised his voice, never lost control, and somehow always came out of conflicts looking like the adult in the room. For the first 6 months, I admired that. By month 8, I started documenting it. If you've ever worked under someone who never shouts, but somehow always wins, comment 1. Some people don't dominate with volume. They dominate with narrative. At first, nothing felt overt, just small corrections. You're remembering that wrong. That's not what was agreed. I think you're taking this a bit personally. Individually, harmless. Collectively, disorienting. The first time I doubted myself, I dismissed it. Everyone misremembers things. The 5th time, I started writing things down. By the 10th, I had folders, emails, meeting notes, Slack messages, calendar invites, not because I thought I'd need them, because I was tired of wondering if I was the problem. The project that changed everything was called Orion. High visibility, tight deadlines, executive attention. Victor positioned himself as the strategist. I handled execution, which meant asterisk. I coordinated cross-functional teams. Asterisk. I solved blockers. Asterisk. I absorbed last-minute changes. Asterisk. I stayed late. And he reframed outcomes. In meetings, he would say things like, "We adjusted direction quickly." What he meant was, he changed requirements mid-sprint. Or, Emily needed some support aligning with the bigger picture. What he meant was, I pushed back on unrealistic timelines. Language matters. Because over time, language becomes memory. The first real crack appeared during a leadership review. Victor presented a slide deck summarizing Orion's progress. Clean, polished, impressive, also incomplete. He described delays as execution challenges. Mine. He described pivots as strategic refinements. His. I watched executives nod slowly, absorbing a version of reality that felt rearranged. After the meeting, I went back to my desk and opened a folder I hadn't touched in weeks. Orion, timeline. Ended. Inside, original scope documents. Asterisk, change requests. Asterisk, Slack threads with timestamps. Asterisk, approval messages. Not feelings. Sequence. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about perception. It was about pattern. A week later, HR scheduled a development conversation. Victor joined. He spoke gently. Emily's contributions are strong, but there have been concerns about consistency under pressure. Consistency. Another one of those words. Vague enough to stretch. Serious enough to stick. I nodded. Not because I agreed, because I understood. The game had changed. If you've ever had your competence questioned without a single concrete example, comment 1. That's not feedback. That's positioning. That night, I didn't vent. I organized. There's a difference. I created 3 folders. 1. Requests versus reality. Every time Victor requested a change and when. 2. Decisions versus attribution. Who made decisions versus who presented them? 3. Language patterns. The exact phrases he used repeatedly. Because patterns don't argue, they reveal. Over the next 2 weeks, something interesting happened. Victor became more confident. That's what people do when their narrative is working. He started summarizing conversations in front of others. So we're aligned that Emily will take responsibility for the delay here. Pause. Smile. Move on. Except this time, I didn't just nod. I followed up. Immediately. In writing. Hi, Victor, just to clarify. The delay discussed was due to scope changes approved on May 12 and May 18. I'll continue managing execution, but wanted to ensure alignment on root cause. Polity. Precise. Documented. He replied, let's not overcomplicate things. Of course, clarity is inconvenient when ambiguity is useful. The escalation happened faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, I was placed on a performance improvement plan. PIP, corporate language for we are building a file. Victor framed it as support. We want to help you succeed. Ask. What he meant was, we want documentation. That was the moment I stopped playing defense and started building sequence. I requested a formal review meeting. HR. Victor. Me. This time, I came prepared. Not emotionally. Structurally, I didn't argue. I asked questions. Can you provide a specific example of inconsistency under pressure? Victor referenced a missed deadline. I nodded, then opened a document. On that date, the deadline was moved forward by 3 days due to a strategic change. Here's the Slack thread confirming that adjustment. Silence. I continued. You mentioned alignment issues. Could we review decision logs from Orion to clarify ownership? One by one, I walked through. Asterisk. Decisions he approved. Asterisk. Changes he initiated. Messages he sent. No accusations. Just sequence. If you're still reading, comment 1. Because this is where everything shifts when emotion is replaced by chronology. Victor tried. Of course he did. Context, pressure, miscommunication. But context collapses when consistency is visible. At one point, HR asked, Victor, were these scope changes communicated as strategic decisions? He hesitated. That was the first real break. Not dramatic, just noticeable, like a hairline crack in glass that suddenly catches the light. Then, I did something he didn't expect. I played his own words. Not audio, emails, direct quotes. Let's reposition this as an execution gap. For now, we can recalibrate later. Don't flag this upward yet. We'll manage the optics. Optics. There it was. The word that explained everything. This had never been about performance. It had been about presentation. The meeting ended without resolution. But something had changed. HR didn't conclude. They paused. And in corporate environments, a pause is rarely neutral. A week later, I was reassigned. Not demoted. Relocated. New team. New reporting line. Victor remained where he was, but his influence narrowed. 3 months after that, he left the company. Officially, pursuing new opportunities. Unofficially, people had started asking questions. Not because I accused him, because I made him visible. The PIP was removed, quietly. No announcement. No apology. That's another thing people misunderstand about resolution. It is rarely loud. It is structural. A year later, I was promoted. Different leadership. Different environment. No one called me emotional. Because no one could. Not after the record I built. Looking back, the most important moment wasn't the meeting. It wasn't the evidence. It wasn't even the outcome. It was the decision. The decision to stop asking, am I overreacting? And start asking, what is actually happening? Because once you see the pattern, you stop negotiating with it. You document it. You date it. You preserve it. And you let it speak. If someone is quietly rewriting your reality, don't raise your voice. Raise your clarity. And never underestimate what happens when a person who was made to doubt themselves decides to keep receipts instead. If this felt familiar to you, comment 1.